Hello, everybody. Here we are with another IAPC live debate. Today we are talking about Reurbex experiences in Europe with the instructors Anne-Catrin Vogt and Eduardo Vicenzi. Reurbex is a change for the better of unhealthy, anti-cosmoetically deteriorated extraphysical environments and communities that is sponsored by Serenissimi, who are the most involved beings on Earth in the evolutionary sense, investigating the sanitization of the intraphysical Holocene, a set of aggregated or concealated thocenes, generating the extraphysical atmosphere of thoughts, ideas or conceptions, sentiments or emotions, and energies of each consciousness, intraphysical consciousness or citizen of the intraphysical society, extraphysical consciousness, reurbanizated extraphysical consciousness, or group of consciousness of entire areas of the intraphysical society where deleterious evolutionary influences are still exerted on humanity. Dr. Waldo Vieira proposed this huge definition on page 245 in his work Homo sapiens reurbanizatus, which we put as a working basis in today's debate. By the way, soon we will have the big event called Conscientiology and Reurbex. Offering this activity, please see the link below or the QR code shown on the screen. My name is Jörn Schmidt. I'm a German living in Foz do Iguaçu on a Conscientiology research campus, volunteering as one of the IAPC's international sector coordinators, coordinating 2 other organizations, and I'm penta practitioner since 2009. It's a pleasure to have Anne-Catrin Vogt and Eduardo Vicenzi as speakers for our lives. Very welcome, Anne-Catrin and Eduardo, my first teachers from 2006 in Frankfurt. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Could you please introduce yourselves?
Yes, thank you, Jörn. It's a pleasure to be here in this live. So my name is Eduardo Vicenzi. I am Brazilian. I am graduating in civil engineering, and I started in Conscientiology as volunteer work in 1997 and start to give in class in 1999. First in 2003, we moved to Mexico. In Mexico, we started to do the first research in Reurbex. After the publication of the treat Homo sapiens reurbanizatus that you mentioned before. And now I live in Germany. We are in Germany now. And this is a great opportunity to talk about this issue.
Thanks for the invitation to the whole IAPC team, you know. So it's always very good to talk about these, very important truths, I think, which Conscientiology proposes. We just heard the very complex definition of Reurbex that Jörn managed to tell us. And I'm also German, as Jörn is, and but I lived in Brazil for 10 years, where I had contact with Conscientiology. This was in 93. And then from 96 on, I was a volunteer and then a teacher and so on. And since then, I'm studying Conscientiology. So my curriculum is more or less the same as Eduardo's, as we are an evolutionary duo. And today we are very glad to talk with you about these very advanced ideas of Conscientiology, which has to do with the planetary evolution. Okay?
Yes, very good. Before we start, let me tell you about the disbelief principle. Don't believe in anything, not even what you are told here. Experiment. Have your own experience. I invite you all to participate in our debate. And please write your questions, ideas, or doubts in the chat. Anne-Catrin and Eduardo, could you explain in your words what is Reurbex, and tell us about your experiences in Europe?
Very well, thank you for giving us this hint to talk in our words, because it's really a complicated issue, and I think we need a whole hour at least in order to talk about just to explain the definition and why we are so connected to this project. So the whole planet currently is involved in the terrestrial existential mega project, which is called extraphysical urbanization. And what is very good in making graphs and presentations. And so maybe we can share a presentation, a slide that you prepared in order to explain this, these movements of this mega project, which we call extraphysical urbanization or Reurbex. Okay, so we can see that at the moment we have a huge demand for assistance to sick consciousnesses. Sick consciousness can be intraphysical or extraphysical, like we are consciousnesses, we are intraphysical, but also when we decimate or when we die, then we are extraphysical consciousnesses. So now we will talk a little bit about these more pathological extraphysical communities, which are called barotrospheres, which are in the extraphysical dimension. So we cannot see them at the moment as we are intraphysical consciousness, but we receive a pressure from that. Okay, would you like to explain?
Yes, I put this image to be more didactical, to understand a little more about the beginning of the process. So here we have a affinity group. It means we join each other in terms of some common interests. In this case, when the interest is anti-evolutionary or, for instance, anti-cosmoethical interest, we join in a group. And this is very common. The people find themselves through the same interest. After that, after the death of this group, as Anne said, these people go to a astrophysical dimension or create a pathological astrophysical community.
Why pathological? Because their joint interests resulted in anti-cosmoethical behavior, which means they were not pro-evolutionary. They committed some mistakes. They hindered the evolution of other consciousnesses. So when we talk, for example, about bellicosity, about warmongering, here we have examples where these people, they form groups which are then called interprison. It's like they are joining a group because of their anti-cosmoethical behaviors. Okay.
And this image represents a middle-aged city, just to illustrate that this process began a long time ago. And now we are in the point to starting to do a reurbanization or the planet, not as specifically, but the Homo sapiens serenissimius, as Jorn said. And then this is the process. When the group is there, they make some pressure or influence in this another interphysical group, and then becomes bigger group. And of course, each kind of interest, in anti-cosmoethical interest, it generates another barotrosphere or another community, pathological community. So these people, of course, we belong at sometimes in this of barotrospheres. Of course, here I just put in 3 like as example of barotrosphere, but in a city, there are many or thousand from this. Each interest in cosmoethical, you have some connection with the astrophysical dimension. Look, and then the people can be for different groups according to the affinity.
For example, monarchic people, you know, who explored other consciousnesses, or then we have the warmongering, the bellicosities, yeah,
Yes.
or religious
sexual promiscuity,
groups. So we have different groups and therefore different communities. Okay.
Or drugs, or there are several of pathologies that we see, no? And then now we are in the city currently, and then the people are here, and they suffer the influence of these communities or this consciousness connected with this conscience or intraphysical consciousness.
You can see here people today, okay, this is a city today intraphysically, but sometimes you receive pressure from communities which are very old. So this is one of the characteristics of extraphysical communities, paratrospheres, that there are consciousnesses which are not resonating, not being reborn since centuries, okay? So we have very old connections with some of those paratrospheres. So this is very important to understand, that each of us has some affinity with some of these paratrospheres. And this is why we are here today to discuss this issue, because we are involved in this big assistance or assistential work, which is called Reurbex, which is now the cleansing of these extraphysical dimension. I think you have a slide for this.
Yes. And first of all, is the objectives of Reurbex. So there is 3 areas we can understand as the job objective. The first is individual, to promote the individual recycling of consigners. Consigners are this consciousness who are in the astrophysical dimension, stuck in this astrophysical dimension.
And they need energy, so they are energivorous, okay? They are getting energies.
So this is doing address to individually and composing the planet's paratrosphere parapopulation that we call also barotrosphere. Astrophysical, to promote collective recycling, reurbanization of astrophysical paratropospheric community.
This is the main objective, because the Reurbex always starts in the extraphysical area. It does not start normally in the intraphysical area. So what we can see intraphysically is just the effects of that cleansing, of this collective recycling, which is done extraphysically.
And intraphysical is to promote the recycling of intraphysical communities under intrusion by paratropospheric astrophysical communities. So this is, we call also reurban or intraphysical reurbanization. Notice that the same word repeated in each case, in each of these objectives, recycling. So this is the synthesis of a Reurbex or astrophysical urbanization. The recycling ourselves, our thoughts, recycling the energies, recycling the environment.
So here we have the triggers for Reurbex. We saw that the parapopulation was accumulated over centuries. So there were a lot of very big communities which were stagnated, okay? So we can see characteristics of this parapopulation accumulation, as Eduardo said, by anti-cosmoethical behavior. Together they went there, and they continue to do the same over and over in the extraphysical communities. This means there was a stagnation. For example, we take a bellicosity dimension, like very warmongering consciousnesses, which are still thinking that they are in war. Generally speaking, we can see that the emotions strong emotions can imprint a pattern of energy able to create environmental stigmas, okay? So pathological holothosins, therefore, can change the geography and the parageography. The parageography is the extra-physical geography on top of the geography, okay? Afterwards, we will speak about Germany, where we have the example of 2 world wars in the 20th century started from Germany. So we have a strong holothosine of the history with wars connected to wars here in Germany. So therefore, the parageography of Germany has other characteristics than, for example, Brazil, which did not have 2 world wars, okay, involved in a lot of wars during the last centuries, okay? So we have here the parapopulation accumulation, and then in the 12th century, so around 1100, Dr. Vieira, the proposer of the Homo sapiens Reurbex theory, he said that he and other consciousnesses, they saw that the Earth had a really big evolutionary stagnation. So since 900 years, more or less, there were no 900 years ago, there were no evolution anymore. So they were very concerned, and they saw the extra-physical consciousness, which are more evolved, like the Serenissimus. They saw that they had to prepare the Earth to a very big recycling process, which had begun then in the 20th century, which we'll talk about. Here we can see, formerly Dr. Vieira said in his, or he wrote in his Auschwitz Verbete is a word entry of the Encyclopedia of Conscientiology, that the catastrophic occurrences of Auschwitz, which is the concentration camp or extermination camp of the Nazis, constituted the last collective pathological symptoms to effectively trigger the general urbanization of planet Earth. So when he explained that during his defense of this word entry Auschwitz, he explained that in his view, formally the acceleration or formally the Reurbex started on this day when the liberation of this concentration camp happened, which was the 27th of January 1945.
So what is the steps of the Reurbex? So the first one is to remove or to rescue the psychic consciousness of this barotroposphere or the barotrosphere. For this community, statistical community, stagnated. And the first steps to do is, when we remove the consciousness from this community, astrophysical, pathological astrophysical community, we call them to cons health. What is cons health? This is the definition. Is a Homo sapiens urbanizatus, is the name of the treatise of Waldo Vieira. Astrophysical consciousness of pathological paragenetic compulsorily displaced by the action of astrophysical reurbanizations. Or it means through the assistance, someone must to assist this consciousness in order to displace from this stagnated dimension and from the astrophysical pathological community where they had been for centuries. Remember the image. It starts some in the Middle Age or before then, and these people remained in the astrophysical dimension, and themselves to resonate in air and still to suffer the imposed transmigration to another planet, which in astrophysical evolution lower than this one. So we show you what is the process. First of all, the rescue individually, and then all the group, and then barotrosphere, though the dimension is empty, no consciousness there. And the 3 destinations possible. First one is the transitional astrophysical dimension, and then rebirth, or directly rebirth, or resoma, And the third option is to transmigration to the planet of lower evolutionary level than Earth. The second is extinction of barotrospheres, energetic recycling. The Serenissimi do this work. And the third one is intraphysical reurbanization, or Reurbex. Here is an example in Berlin. We were there researching with a group, an expedition, researchers in research and
a field research. We did
a field research
on the geography where the Gestapo, the SS, so the whole headquarters of the Nazi regime was. And today we have there a documentation center with a very big library specialized in the clarification task to understand what is the Holocaust, what is the Nazi regime, and so on. So we see here an example of a case where a totally nosographic, pathologic geography was reurbanized, starting extraphysically, but we already see intraphysically how today we have there a very positive, a very mental somatic area, a documentation center which is free of charge. The people who visit there, they can get information in 5 different languages. They can visit the library, they can stay the time they want, and there is this documentation about the whole history. So we see this is here in Germany a very interesting case study. But Jörn, I think we have questions.
Yes, we have questions. It's very interesting, this processes and what happened with the scenes, how it changed. And we have one question from Simone, and she asked, what is the relationship of conscious projections and parapsychism with Reurbex?
Okay.
I think we...
Yeah, we can talk about that. Going back to this treatise of Homo sapiens Reurbanization, which is right behind us, which Waldo Vieira wrote, he dedicated in this treatise a whole chapter to Europe. Okay, so there is one chapter which is called Europe, and there he exemplified what happened in the 70s and in the 80s with a lot of projectors coming out of Brazil. But not only conscious projectors. He says that a lot of the projectors, they were unconscious, and they helped in this cleansing of the barotrosphere over Europe. Okay, so I will talk a little bit in his words what he said, what happened. Okay, and what is the role of the projector. So he said that the mapping of the degraded terrestrial paratroposphere pointed to the European continent as being the first to go through this deep Reurbex work, because Europe was the continent which most influenced the planet Earth. Okay, so he explained that in the late 70s, thousands of conscients, men and women, most of them unconscious, together with extra-physical helpers, they participated, projected through assistential projections in the works of the initial extra-physical reurbanization. For about 12 years, he explains, healthy consciences and healthy projected assistential conscience, they formed huge flocks or huge groups of volitators day after day, month by month, uninterruptedly exchanging their own homeostatic energies with the very nosographic energies of the sick consciousnesses in this degraded holothosins. So he explains in this chapter that the most valuable component of conscience we have when we are projected as a resource of interconsciential assistance is our humanized, animalized, or more empathetic consciential energy. And therefore, this is appropriate to address the extreme fossilized conscience in ancient anti-cosmoethical and chronified parapathologies. So let's understand what happens here. When we talk about the concepts which are stagnated in the Reurbex, in the different dimension communities, we are talking about these conscious or reurbanized consciousness, where they are the victims of themselves, the same holothoughting, the same emotions, the same behaviors, year after year, life after life, and they were there. He described it like really like psychosomas, which are totally degenerated. So when these positive energies of projectors, which still have a body and therefore a very material energy, was integrated, it was like an infusion, okay, or fusion with those concepts, they could be rescued from those areas, okay? So it's important to understand that this parapathological paragenetics, which the conscious formed since centuries, can only be addressed by the counterpart, which is an existential energy, which is a positive energy of people who are conscious, or in our case as projected unconscious, but guided by consciousnesses, lucid consciousnesses like Serenissimi, Helper, and evolutionologists. So it's important to understand that our part is the donation of dense energy.
And then we can see also there is no reason for now we are not doing the same. So we think that nowadays we as intermissivists, or we want to be assistant, we do projections even unconscious and doing this work day after day. So just to finish the question of Simone, the parapsychism is important to understand what is happening intraphysically, because this extraphysical urbanization starts in the extraphysical dimension. As Annie said, here in intraphysical dimension, we see the effects, but we don't know what is happening in the extraphysical dimension. And with the parapsychism, you can see, for instance, you can feel the energy, the pattern of energy, if it is a urbanized place or not urbanized, just with the energy, the evocation, the coupling with the extraphysical consciousness. When you are researching in Reurbex, you do this evocation and do this connection with this extraphysical consciousness, you have the opportunity to do the assistance to them. So this the importance of the parapsychism, at least to see what happens extraphysically.
Yes, what we are doing each night, for example.
Yes.
In this sense, we have another, or in this context, we have another question from Beatrice, because these couplings happens, and we have these inter-influences. So Beatrice, she was asking, what are the optimizations and what should we pay attention to in conducting research in terms of evocations, as you said, couplings and decouplings? So how can we decouple also this? It could be a big pressure. What experience do you have?
Yeah, I think we have two ways. The first thing is the energy work. So in order to know when it's time to decouple from the energy, if you're, for example, studying a nosographic issue. But the second thing is your intention. I think the intention, in order to really to help, gives you some basis. Okay, sure, you have to know your limits. How long can I study, and to connect? How can I do it to connect to the helpers in order to have a positive view of the whole urbanization process, where my study case, for example, a massographic theme, is also being approached. So also to start on the positive side in order to understand that the result is evolution for everyone is always a good optimization. But please go, you can also.
Yes, because when we are studying some topics, is unavailable. You cannot avoid the coupling with the extraphysical consciousness, because you are studying exactly the issue that maintain this extraphysical consciousness stuck in the barotrosphere regarding these issues that you are studying. When you start, it's like to do an evocation, because you are thinking, you are researching about the problem of this consciousness, and they are connected with us. If you keep hygiene in your thoughts, without judge, without criticize negatively this consciousness, you have more opportunity to not be coupling in a negative way.
Mm-hmm. And as generally, Beatrice, I would say that the constant qualification as an assistant is very important to optimize. So if we have in mind that we have personal connections or personal involvement established in previous lives with exactly these consciousness, with these issues, these areas, so then we create the necessary link to also attract these trapped consciousness to our holothousin, which is more positive. So if the assistant, the consign, if we are up to date with our recycling, our individual recycling, that proves that we can overcome our past. And this is the lecture or the example that we can give to these concepts which are still in the old holothousin, that they also can overcome their past. So they can be rescued by our personal recyclings. And sometimes I think we don't understand really what is happening there. How is this that my personal recycling can have a positive effect in other contexts? This is due to our affinities. We are examples, bad examples if we want, or we are good examples if we want, okay? So this is our responsibility as intermissivists. We studied this area before we came to resonate here, to live in this planet with our personal mission. And in this personal mission, we included also to help to rescue our colleagues, which we left in these barotrosphere when we were getting to an intermissive course.
Wow, this huge process, how do we know that this Reurbex is in progress? This is a question from Tiago. And what are the indicators to see the movement of it's going on? Could you explain this?
We have a slide on this, don't we have this? Examples?
We have some examples. If you put them,
but you can see the positive effects of Reurbex Thiago. Yeah. So we can see here, for example, movements which this planet never had after the World War II. We had big international institutions which have the holothousin to maintain peace in the world, like the United Nations. Okay, so it was like, after World War II, everyone said, okay, we don't want that anymore. If there's another world war, no one will be alive anymore. So then we have other movements, other institutions like the WHO and so on, connected to the United Nations. So we can see that some people which are more lucid, they are already taking responsibility on a planetary stage or phase, So this is a level, this is very important. Then we have the European Union. We are talking here about Europe mainly, where we can see that countries which were in war for hundreds or thousands of years, historically, now they join in order to also establish peace, which is the the first objective of the European Union is to establish peace between the countries. Okay, so we have these movements. So when we talk about 27 different countries, different cultures, sometimes different languages, they come together and they say, okay, we want to to be, we have solidarity together. We want to be united. This is something which planet Earth did not see yet. Okay, then we have all these human rights movements, which is also new. So we did not have these kind of human rights or these kind of movements, which are very positive before. Then going back to Germany, we had, after this Nazi regime, we have two systems. We had the communism and we have the capitalism in Germany. So we had Eastern Germany and we have Western Germany, which both represented two different regimes. The whole world was like divided between communism and capitalism. And the division went through Germany. Okay, so we had a border in Germany. The example of Berlin is a big example with the wall and everything. So when in 1919 the wall fell, it was formally the end of the Cold War. So we can here see this repercussion of the extra-physical communities, which were really sanitized or hygienized and taken away this big problems of the bellicosis, Homo sapiens bellicosis, and we had this effect that then Germany could be united, but not only this, but that the whole Soviet Union, okay, the system also fall, and we had a certain liberty or freedom in different other countries. Do you want to explain the others?
No, we can see that the process of Reurbex is accelerating. It's very dynamic. It's much more fast than we observe here, because here we see the effects, but extraphysically the things is happening very, very, very fast. And then this another one is Doctors Without Borders, and there's this French, and Defense of Ecology, and there are several other examples that we can notice. The urbanization is going on, is accelerating.
Very good. So our society has an effect. So very good. We are continuing. And one more question, interesting, is what we can do. So we have here from Marguerite a question, which is, what are the ways in which the assistant can contribute the Reurbex process, and what qualifications are required? So what can we do?
I think a part of this question was in the questions, two questions before. But in order to address the contribution, by doing our ProAccess, our existential program, the mission that we personally planned to do, we are already contributing to Reurbex. Okay, it's because Reurbex is the whole project of Conscientiology. So Conscientiology came out of the necessity of the Reurbex, which Waldo Vieira explains very well in his book. So everyone who thinks he has a mission, who has a ProAccess, is already contributing by his speciality, by the task that he is using his the person is using his strong traits in favor of assistance of other consciousnesses. So this is linking us to the Reurbex. But there are some specific areas which is where it's more evident or more obvious for us in which area or in which subject we could invest or qualify ourselves. So if every one of us looks at his family, at the society where he lives, at the problems that the society or the community has, he can see where he has his links, his personal links, because there's no society which is perfect. So if you're living in a community which is poor, which has the favela, like the slum area or something, you have responsibility in order to help there also, so you can contribute with your holothursing.
Yes, the main important thing is the recycling, intraconsciential recycling, as Anne said before, because of the connection with this physical consciousness. When we recycle ourselves, we motivate, we stimulate this consciousness to recycle also. And then, but there is other possibilities to do our part. For instance, researching evolutionary issues regarding the evolution of the consciousness. Everything that you research in conscientiology is connected with the Reurbex. Doing our, for instance, penta or personal task, assistance, personal task, energetic task. So this is a tool to help these people. The projections are outside of body to doing the rescue of this extraphysical consciousness, working as a bait that you attract this extraphysical consciousness, and then you can donate some energies or establish a new pattern of things, of thoughts and sentiments. They provide the rescue of this consciousness.
We were talking about the Serenissimi. The Serenissimi, they have the character, they are characterized as consciousnesses which have overcome their intraconsciential conflicts. So these are very evolved consciousnesses. But we, normal humans, we still have intraconsciential conflicts, okay? So if we overcome in our recyclings our intraconsciential conflicts, we also connect to those consciousnesses who also have intraconsciential conflicts, and then we give the example. So we connect to them and we help them. So it's very important to understand that those old emotions which we had in different lives, they imprint energy which is nosographic of parapathological communities. Now we have to go there and to clean these energies which we left there with our big emotions, big emotional issues that we had. So in the moment that we overcome our intraconsciential conflicts, we do our recyclings, we get better emotionally, energetically, mental, somatically. We clean what we left there, which was not very clean, okay? So this is very important to understand.
Okay. We have lots of questions here with in several ways. So I only could allow one more for Melanie, which is what you mentioned about the penta. And she asked, what role do penta practitioners in Europe have in this process, and what should they keep in mind or pay attention to?
Yeah, very good question, Melody. Let's take your case. At the moment, you are residing in Austria. I don't know how many penta practitioners are in Austria. I don't think it's too many. So one person in that geography makes a big difference to that parageography, okay? So a representative of the Austrian nationality, living there, residing every day, donating energies helps in this parageography to those consciousnesses which you are connected. And it's very important to understand that this change of environments, of extraphysical environments, will have then a repercussion to our intraphysical environments. This is very important to understand, to be positive, to see that this is a long-term, it's a long-term goal. We are not talking about 1 week, 1 year. Reurbex is an ongoing work for centuries. Go ahead.
No, it's okay.
A very good explanation. Thank you, Anne-Catrin. So unfortunately, we are on the end on our debate, and let's have some final considerations. Eduardo, Anne-Catrin, can you talk a little short consideration?
Yeah, my final consideration would be the final consideration of Waldo Vieira in his book. On page 1122, so 1122, he explained that the extra-physical reurbanizations and all the temporary consequences, like the growing crises that we see, in the end, they are positive, they are opportune, and they are irreversible, as they are preparing the Earth, our planet, now more mature for a direct intraphysical coexistence with the most evolved consciousnesses of civilizations from other planets. At this moment, we terrestrians, we don't have contact, intraphysical contact with other civilizations of other planets. But reurbanization is preparing us to get to a cosmoethical level where we already installed a world state, which means we have world peace already, in order to be on a level cosmoethically high enough to have communication with other intraphysical consciousnesses for more evolved planets. So what he says, in other words, he writes, urbanization are the general cleaning of the house from the living room to the guest room in order to be prepared as hosts to receive distinguished guests and visitors with dignity, education, hygiene, and homeostasis. Physical conscience of multiple extra-physical cosmic origins egress from the confines of outer space. So I'm looking forward to this objective, and this is one of my long-distance objectives in doing this work. I think of this when I'm exchanging energies in more nosographic area. I see we are heading there. So this is a very positive thing.
Yes, I want just to say thank you for the invitation. These issues is very complex. I saw that there is a lot of other questions that unfortunately we didn't have time to answer. But anyway, maybe in another opportunity, and we will be at the course of IIPC is Conscientiology in Reurbex. Will be there in November next month.
Thank you, guys.
Yes.
Thank you.
And this is what we can talk a little more. And before we close, let me call Patricia Barbosa, who is representing IUPC International in the Conscientiology and Reurbex event, what is coming soon. Hello, Patricia.
Hello, Jorn.
Event.
Yes, hello, Jorn. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be here to enjoy you all, to participate in this course, which is called Conscientiology and Reurbex. So this course is going to be a field course, very practical. You have the opportunity to experience lucid projections or try to perform lucid projections and act as a real para assistant in this Reurbex, you know. And this is a very special course because it has already begun. So we're having a lot of events to prepare ourselves, to develop our parapsychic skills, to know more about this reurbanization process since March. So we have free live debates, just like this one. And we also have some workshops. So if you enroll in the course right now, you'll be able to participate in the next workshop on October the 31st, which is about pacifismology and serenology. So we're going to talk about peace. How can we become more peaceful beings in order to assist better, you know? So I invite you to click on the link below and get more information about this course. If you have any questions, how to enroll it and what is the program, just get in touch with us. It will be our pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much. And it was a lovely and very enlightening debate.
Thank you very much, Patricia, and thank you, Anne-Catrin and Eduardo, for this rich talk. And thank you all for your participation and contribution. We hope we could enlighten your thoughts somehow. Hopefully, we will meet again in another talks and conscientiology courses. If you wish to know more about IAPC activities, as well as the Projectology Reurbex event, follow us on Facebook or social media, Instagram, YouTube, or our website. Join us next month with live talk and stay tuned. Have a nice day for all of us. Bye-bye. See you soon.